Hello, everyone. My name is Scott Costello. I'm a partner with the EPM practice here at Elire, and I'm going to give a presentation today on some of the new AI components of Oracle's narrative report solution. So Oracle's introduced three ways of actually analyzing your data in narrative reports and presenting that information in commentary form. There's three different methods that they've introduced. One is exceptions, typically used for variance analysis. One is causality, where you're able to actually go in and see the details behind the numbers to see what's causing some of those challenges of the data. And the third is a comparative analysis to make commentary automatic when there's changes over time with the information. I'm going to go through a little presentation on each one and even show you how to set this up. So for those of you unfamiliar with Oracle Narrative Reports, this is what the solution looks like. It's a complete management and narrative reporting tool, which means that it has things like task flow associated with it, and has report packages typically used for things like annual reports, even external filings or internal budget packages, however you want to use it. Completes a whole deck of information, and you can create tasks and assign responsibilities associated with it. Like some of the reporting solutions you might be used to, there's also the ability to create individual reports, create books, and what's really critical with the solution is the ability to add notes and commentary around any data to help explain variances and justify the numbers. But from an AI perspective, what Oracle's introduced is these three different types of methods, and I'm going to walk you through each of the three. So again, the first one is exception. So they've even provided some sample reports. So if you do use narrative reporting and wanted to create a sample application where you could play with this, you could download these sample reports on their site in order to take advantage of it and get a good understanding of the solution yourself. So I'm going to open up the first one, again, exception. Again, the point of exception is for the solution to look at variance differences. So how is my actual doing compared to plan? I can see that for the US, I'm down negative 1.3%. For Europe, down 3%. And what's getting generated automatically for us are these notes down below. So it's explaining that the variance is down this negative 1.3% based on USA. So for this simple report, it's pretty obvious, some of those numbers, but imagine a much longer detailed report where you're trying to find kind of that needle in the haystack of where challenges with your information lie. This will create that commentary for you automatically and even allow you to drill into it. So if I see, okay, I'm down negative 1.3%, why am I down? I can click on that, and there's no setup that needs to be done in order to do this. It'll look at the design of the report and allow you to drill into the details automatically, so I can try to understand where's that negative 1.3% coming from, and I can see the majority is actually coming from Colorado. That's where my biggest variance lies. So for quick understanding of variances and gaps in the data, the exception component is one of the foundational ones, and one that's delivered out of the box. So before I go to the other two, I did want to just take a moment to show how these are built. Again, this is part of that sample application. For those of you either using financial reports or a narrative reporting solution, you might be familiar with the designer mode. In here, I'm going to edit the grid of data. You can see I have my logo and titles up above, but this is where I define my rows and columns of information as well as the rest of my point of view. So it's a simple report where I have entities in my rows, actuals and plan in my columns, and then a variance in column C. I actually have a hidden column too in this sample, but if you'll notice here on that particular variance column, There's a little tilde in the upper right, and that indicates that I have some conditional properties to it. To edit and look at conditional properties, use this third button at the end where you can format information differently or suppress information using specific condition. There's a condition already set up for this particular intersection where it's saying anything where the value of column C is greater than 0, but there's an additional condition that says, make sure that the value in D, which is another formula, is over 10. We don't want to bring in all data that's negative, only for certain values. So there's a second condition applied. All you have to do is once you define the condition is use this function. So if you are familiar with the text functions, the one piece that they've added is this auto text summary. So I don't have to create anything else, just that auto text summary. And in that auto text summary, I see I have three options. I have a blank, I have a zoom, and I have compare. Blank is a default. That's the exception. So this one is blank. Exception, again, is used for variance. Causality is the zoom. So zoom into that next level for me and tell me what's the challenges that I'm seeing. And then compare is to have the system look time over time, quarter over quarter, month over month, year over year, and explain, what those differences are. So again, I'll show each one, but I just wanted to show those differences that you could do here. If you want to make things drillable, which I always do, you could say enable analytics. If you don't want people to drill in, you could turn that off. Once you've enabled that conditional text and potentially the analytics, the next piece to show that text in the report is just creating a text box here. So this is a text box, and I'm using a text function this time. So you're seeing it says, bring in the conditional text in grid 1. Again, that's all you need to do. And that function is readily available right here, where I can select conditional text and then either pick a cell level of information, a column, or an entire grid. If you don't have anything in there, it assumes grid 1 or whatever grid is displayed on the report. So that's it. You set up that conditional property, you define what the conditions are, and then you can go in and actually edit this text box to display that textual information in the report. And that's what gives us our conditional text right here. Anything over 0%, these two are over 0, and Canada isn't being represented because that hidden column, it didn't meet that condition for the hidden column. If I change this to specific segments of information from all segments to a particular segment, it'll update automatically, and it'll allow you to see where some of those variances are for segment 1, which happens to be electronics. I'm going to go back to all segments here, and then we'll look at the second report. So the second report set up here is comparative analysis. In compare, you always have to think of time. It's comparing one time period to another time period. So the property that we set up for this one, or that's set up in the sample, is to look quarter over quarter, and if it's meeting a certain threshold of a percentage change, identify that in the conditional text. So in this example, across all segments, it's looking at quarter 1 for gross profit and letting me know what quarter 1 is. The conditional text here is anything greater than 0. But then it moves on to say from quarter 1 to quarter 2, and you could just do this on the quarters, the forward-looking quarters. We see that there was a 10.3% change. This is not a formula or anything. This is part of the default AI component that's built in, where it's calculating that percentage change for you, so you don't have to display it. From Q2 to Q3, it sees an increase of 1.8%. And then from Q3 to Q4 actually sees a decrease of 3.96%. Now again, when we design these reports, you can define all that. You'll see just a box saying conditional text. So by default, it's going to look at what are your conditional properties and just put all that in the box below. But this conditional text, the design for it, very similar. The value is just if the current cell value is 0, but you could do things like if it's not Q1, don't display it, or if it's greater than a certain percentage, or if it's a negative value. So you can play with all those, values to say less than 0, only display. And then again, I'm adding the auto text function, and this time I'm saying do a compare. So that's the difference. I'm comparing time over time, so I need to display that time period. So now I'm saying anything less than 0 here, and I can apply that, to all the different quarters if I want. That's what my grid looks like. And now since I've added that condition, I'm not seeing any changes in my notes. So those conditions really drive everything. So I won't save this particular view. And last, and the one I think is, one of the most significant ones that we get a lot of questions on is causality. So what is driving the differences in my data? In the comparative analysis, I was able to drill in, while the causality drills in for you automatically. So if I click on the causality, I'm looking at my revenue accounts here. That's what my 41000 is. And what the system is doing is saying, look at North America, and if I have changes in Q3 compared to Q4, tell me what the cause is. So here I'm saying in Q4, the revenue of North America was 174. The top 5 contributing entities are New York, California, Massachusetts, Minnesota, and Colorado again, which is similar to what we saw when we drilled in on the exception view. So the causality kind of explains what most people want to see. What's driving the difference in my number? I don't want to necessarily click into it. I want the information just at my fingertips. You notice it's drilling down to the lowest level, to the state level, as opposed to a regional level or anything like that. And that's all defined in your setup of the grid. So this time I don't have a separate note box. I'm doing my notes to the right of the columns of my data. And here, when I do my conditional formatting, you can see that I'm saying anything greater than 12 million, tell me about, or 120 million. But in my auto text summary, I'm saying zoom. I'm saying show me the top 5, so you can even define the number of members. And I'm telling it to zoom into that level 0 of information. You could do this to level 1, level 2. You could do descendants. You could use a lot of the family tree intelligence that's built into the application. So very easy to design, very easy to take advantage of. If you have narrative reports already, in order to turn these features on, all you have to do is come into your configurations and your settings, click on the generative AI, click enable it, save, then all those text functions will be available for you, or auto-generate things. So we've implemented this at a few different organizations. Happy to help with your organization. Again, these are the 3 different methods. These sample reports are available out there. If you do need more support or help on this, or want to dive into any of these a little bit deeper, or try them with your reports, don't hesitate to reach out. You can reach us at EPM@elire.com, and we're happy to help with any of your narrative reporting or EPM needs. Thank you again for your time today.